Welcome to Movie and a Beer, everybody. This is Dan bringing us in, and we have a really great, fun comedy horror film to watch.
And a couple of beers.
And some wonderful friends, and a special guest host. And that would be our guest host over there. Tell us who you are.
Hi, my name's James.
Wow. And he's from Vegas, and he knows a few things about drag queens, because the rest of us don't really know much about it.
Big fan.
So we watched this movie called Slay, because that's what those drag queens do. They slay hard. Yes, they do. So this is a to-be original.
Yep.
And there's some really interesting stuff going on, but I think we have a couple other co-hosts here that probably should introduce themselves, right?
Yeah, dude, I'm Blake. I'm your vampire expert.
Hey, everybody. This is Brian, and I am your broken down Winnebago expert.
That's good expertise. That's a great expertise.
So this movie Slay came out earlier this year, I believe, or 2023 maybe?
Nope, 2024.
2024.
IMDb says this year.
And so this is the weekend that we're sort of celebrating Portland Pride. It is July, so we're dating ourselves on this episode, but that's okay. It'll be a little while before we get it out to the public. But
in Portland, we are proud every month of the year.
We are. And
hell yeah.
There's some really special beers that we have that we tried that Gigantic puts out that's a weird Portland United oriented, and a couple that have drag queens on them that we'll talk about in a little bit, that have both the world record holder for the longest performing drag queen up until her 80s, I believe. So, and then Poison Waters, who's the other one? But we do, if you're in Portland and you've ever been to Darcelle's very well known, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but a couple of really famous drag queens in this movie called Slay that we watched, to be original, was all about that. And it really is like we tried saying that it was sort of along the lines of Tuong Fu, but not really. It was more like Priscilla, because they're traveling into Winnebago and they're going from place to place, and they're out in the desert in probably Texas, I think.
Yeah.
Someplace like that. And they run across vampires. So it's, if you imagine like you're trapped in a bar with a bunch of vampires and you're fighting them off.
Oh, from Dusk Till Dawn.
From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah. So it's
1,000% more drag queens.
A traveling drag queen show, and they get booked to a Texas roadhouse.
Yeah, it is a roadhouse.
Not necessarily by accident. That's sort of a plot spoiler, but we're not really going to say that.
Well, they got the name wrong.
Yes.
It's not the...
Yeah, they didn't expect to be there. The bar didn't really expect them to be performers.
The bartender made a purpose, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe they did.
We're going to have to be careful with spoilers, because this is a newer movie, and Dan loves to give away the endings of every movie because he's a monster.
Yes, I am.
Not like a vampire.
So we're going to redefine a little bit about vampire lore. We're going to talk about that for a moment, in a moment.
These guys are cool with the sun. They explode into glitter, kind of.
Dusty glitter.
Glitter and ashes.
They don't have to swap blood to make more vampires. They just bite, and then it's done.
Yeah, so it's like a virus.
Part of that is
contagious.
Yeah, like part of that's the effects of the budget, I'm sure, of a B movie. Brian and I discussed a little bit while watching, some vampire movies. They bite, it's just a cascade of fake blood like pouring down. Other ones just a bite chunk gone. That's it. This one, 2 bite marks, a spray of digital blood or a little bit of blood spray, and then it's there, which I love. I love a low budget vampire movie.
I wouldn't say this is kind of a grindhouse movie at all.
No. Grindhouse is more intense.
And the script is actually very clever.
I'd say it's more camp with like effort put in the writing and the performance.
All right. So our special guest here, who knows a few things about performances as both a music teacher and somebody who sings and performs in big crowds and has done it all in big environments, both in Vegas and abroad. What were your thoughts?
I enjoyed most of the costumes and wigs.
All right.
Costumes were really good.
I didn't feel like Caramel's outfit really did her much justice. She was in the sparkly silver.
Yeah.
Her tits were very saggy the entire film.
Yeah.
Caramel plays Olive Wood.
Yes. The very, very tall drag queen of
the combative one. The Raphael of the group, if you will.
Who ran away and then came back.
Let's talk for just a second about the 4 lead characters of this film. My understanding is all 4 lead characters are actual drag performers.
Yes. And they've all been on various seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race.
Nice.
Both U.S. and
Abroad.
I think Caramel was like in the either UK or Canada. I think it's UK.
That's awesome.
And how do you think they did as actors in this film?
Considering the campy nature of the movie, I thought they captured that quite well. I feel like there were some really like heartfelt moments. And considering there's always like acting challenges in Drag Race as a show, I feel like they very much stepped up their game.
Okay.
Because I imagine it's a different vibe acting on a closed set versus the performances.
Like a full length feature movie.
Right, yeah. The skill set to be a drag queen, singing, dancing, performing in front of a live audience, I'm sure.
And there's no cuts. It's just what it is.
Yeah,
it's
is very different than acting on the screen where you've got to do take after take, make your emotion believable. In addition to delivering camp lines, we also needed to believe them as characters.
Yeah. And working with a director. For drag shows, is there any kind of overseeing person, or is it just each queen is told, do what you want to do, we'll make it work?
Sometimes they'll do group numbers.
Okay.
And they'll have someone who's basically like hiring the talent. But I think every drag queen pretty much determines the music and the mix and the performance that they're going to create
makes
with
sense.
that. In this case, they're following the directions of a director and
trying
to bring to life
memorizing the script.
And there's lighting, and they sent one of them out who knows a little bit about lighting and direction, and informed the hired help at the bar to help with the music
for first
and the video.
9th favorite character.
Yes.
My 9 favorite characters in this movie.
So ultimately, it starts out as kind of a funny, we're in the wrong place. We shouldn't be here. We need to leave. And then it's like,
they confuse the word buck with tuck.
Yeah.
I forget the rest of the name of the bar, but that's pretty funny joke. It's a good joke.
Yeah. And there's people there that want them there, including, people who both work there and audience members.
Locals who just live in a rural town who just want some queer representation, who want different performances than the one poster said like nude review dancers or something coming soon, or probably like the good old boys from Blues Brothers, which are country folk playing something different.
I think there's a lot to be said that this reflects a lot of America in their approach and their attitude, where if you're given the chance, you'd be surprised.
I can see a lot of the Midwest doing that.
Yeah. I mean, they're accepting of a lot of things. I'm like, I'm not hurting you, you're not hurting me, go for it, you know? Versus
not
lot
Travis,
of attitudes.
not the big lead semi-antagonist.
Yeah. He was kind of stubborn most of the show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, initially he was threatened because it was an unknown quantity or quality. And he warmed up to the drag performers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they saved his butt a few times, and they're like, I'd be
and
good.
they became comrades in arms, really.
Specifically, Mama Souffle, played by
Souffle.
Ryan A. Taylor. It didn't tell me what their original...
Trinity the Tuck.
Trinity the
go.
Tuck.
Thank you.
There you go. Yeah. Interesting stuff. So as far as you had mentioned, James, some costume things. Now, performance-wise, you probably have more experience in witnessing and watching and having singing along with the songs that
Don't
they
count
did.
Brian out.
Well, I mean, they're songs that I know of, but I have I don't know them because I don't listen to that kind of music. But there's nothing wrong with it. And did a little bit of performances that did happen, was that realistic or believable? I mean, I've seen RuPaul's Drag Race a few
You mean to
times,
the hit song WAP?
yes.
What's that stand for, Dan?
I don't know what that stands for. Why don't you Google it and find out?
I know what it stands for, but you're going to have to bleep it out.
No, we're not going to talk about that at this moment. But yes, that is the first group performance. This is an R-rated film. You don't see any nudity. You don't see any real gore. There's a few blood splashes. There's
Gun violence and language.
There's not really a lot of language.
Not a lot of
It's
language.
not a lot.
no.
I mean, nothing you wouldn't hear on.
There's a little
HBO.
off-color double entendres, I would say.
Correct. And that's nothing a teenager wouldn't have already understood and knows.
Frankly,
what's
it's more
being
clever writing than anything on YouTube.
said, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, so thoughts on the presentation that was done on the stage initially.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, because
He's
it's like, I mean, it was good. You were singing along with it.
Well, considering they were performing on like a 5-foot stage, they were doing the best they could. I appreciated production for spending money to secure like a Doja Cat song. And
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Megan Thee Stallion. Like it was quite enjoyable to listen to. I feel like they more channeled the essence of drag through the rest of the film rather than just focusing on the performance aspect. It was just
right. It wasn't an authentic representation of a drag show, right? Because
very
a 5x5 stage in a country western bar.
I imagine not a lot of drag queens are
authentic.
going to Texas in the heart of bum F Texas.
Yeah. Well, it could be anywhere in the Midwest. I mean, because the one said, I've performed in every dive bar in New Jersey.
That's true.
So who knows where this was? It could have been somewhere east seaboard, or it could have been a little bit more west, like Missouri, or somewhere in
looked
Illinois.
very dusty outside.
It looked very Texas.
Maybe Oklahoma.
Yeah,
Let's change it up.
could be.
Oklahoma's more believable, or even like I don't know. Panhandle of Florida.
Could be the Mad Max universe.
Yeah, who knows? So speaking of universes and the lore, this had a lot of interesting. They actually, the youngest of the queens, started going through when they discovered that, there's vampires here.
Oh yeah, is it like Twilight?
Yeah.
Is it like
Is
it like Blade?
Is it like Blade? Who do you want to be like? Because I need to be like so and so. Like you want to channel that and understand like what those movie references.
Donya Cash playing Jax, who got the like the sport like markings and the silver jacket later, kept referencing it was like Blade. We need katanas and sun bombs.
I just
UV
laughed
light.
out loud at her reference to the foot fetish nature of from Dusk Till Dawn.
Because that exists. That's
because
real.
Tarantino has a fetish and it's fine. He's a great filmmaker.
Yeah.
But he definitely made it. He wrote a movie where he got to lick Salma Hayek's foot.
Yes.
That's just fact.
Yes.
But I appreciate this movie references other vampire movies. A lot of monster movies don't reference other films. So when you watch a zombie movie where they go, "Why are they shuffling like that? What do we do?" Like you've seen a zombie movie.
You've read the books. You've seen the movies. You played the games.
That's what I appreciate about Shaun of the Dead is they reference zombies and then just say, "Don't say it anymore. Just don't say it." But we know what's happening.
Yeah.
And here they talk about, well, if you get bit, but then they play with the lore of if you're a jerk as a vampire, if you're a jerk as a human, you're going to be a jerk as a vampire.
Yeah.
If you're okay as a human, you might be all right as a vampire.
You can resist.
And it's a really interesting take on that whole trope. I mean, Twilight kind of does it, I guess.
Yeah. You can be a good vampire. You don't have to be a bad one.
Blade sort of does it, but it's really
questionable.
It's still like a lot of twists and turns, and there's good versus evil. And then Wesley Snipes saying M and F while he's murders dudes. Yeah.
That happens.
But yeah, I really enjoy some of the rules they introduced for vampires in this movie. Like this, I like that they can go in the sun. Like take that away, but garlic still affects them. Which could be just an allergy.
Yeah, it could be an allergy.
It's more.
It's more of the cross doesn't affect them.
The cross doesn't affect them.
But getting stabbed through the heart with anything does, which I don't like as much.
Well, silverware.
Yeah,
she had.
Silver's more werewolves, but I don't hate it.
And are we spoiling the movie by giving all the rules?
Probably
that
not.
You kind of discover.
Well, you discover them as they go along because they're trying to figure it out. Like, how can we save ourselves? And then it's like, oh, we need to wait till the morning. And then it's like, oh, that doesn't work either. Oops.
Well, I mean,
they tried it. That was said straight up at the beginning when they're talking about the vampire lore and what do we know about vampires? Let's figure that out. They're not really vampires, but they're vampires. We don't know what they are, and blah blah.
Well, it's
blah,
fun
blah,
that they say the rules, and some characters still ignore them.
Yeah,
and go for things that they won't work, and then it feels at that point, well, you're just building fake drama to build fake tension. But I'm still here for it because I love a campy B movie.
Well, it is very campy in that way. I mean,
I love a campy movie.
They push it.
Do we feel like the movie, the vampires in the movie, more represent cult members because they didn't really suck people's blood as much as just bite to infect?
They just killed.
Yeah, they just kept wanting to bring people into their fold.
That's a good point. They talk a lot about how I can smell you and hear your arteries pumping, but they didn't really eat anyone or drain anyone.
Yeah,
they
would just
bit
bite
and walked
and
away.
move on. Yeah,
yeah, but they did talk about how the hunger was real because the one character fed on a rat.
Yeah,
to feed the hunger and satiate himself,
or something already dead.
That might be the one example. I like James's take that they're building their cult.
Yeah. And, there's nothing wrong with that as long as there's
hold on.
consent because,
Is this why you gave us Kool-Aid before we started the episode? I'm not drinking this.
there's a lot of good one-liners. There's a lot of really amazing phrases used. And it's like, well, at least vampires have consent because they have to ask to enter. And I think that was one of the things you had to
They reference that and
enter.
then they show the sign I mentioned to Brian seconds before they made that reference of come on in, we're chilling. Like, that's a
the
really
beer
good
is cold.
You're welcome here.
Yeah.
The beer is cold.
That's really funny.
And it's like, oh yeah, you just so if they can read English, you can come in. Is that what that is?
So
Is that the
Eastern
phrase?
European vampires cannot come in because they didn't learn.
Correct.
I mean, they might have learned English because it's Europe. They learned more than one language.
They live forever.
I really did. I'm going to digress a little bit because there's some other really campy, funny vampire TV shows and movies that we've seen over the years, and we've talked about briefly here on this podcast. And really, if you've been alive for like 200 years and you don't have a lot of money, because you should just walk into the sun.
Yeah, that's a meme you shared, and I love it.
It's like, really, if you're poor after 200 years, you got a problem. Because, there's lots of things to take and use and abuse. But the older vampire that started the whole thing, you ran into him at the beginning and then at the end. Well, and he's just out in the woods.
We think he's older. He has wisps of white hair, but he could just be a Texas bum or an Oklahoman bum.
But his face was not humanoid.
His face was different. That's true.
His face was bat-like. Yeah. I don't know.
Much more Buffy than the other vampires.
Very Buffy.
And Buffy even got referenced multiple times.
Well, of course, Buffy slays Queen.
Yes, she does. Thoughts on that original vampire? So we had thought that if you kill the original...
Maybe the old trope that you kill the original, the others either stop being vampires or die.
And that didn't happen. I'm going to totally spoil that shit.
I think that's okay.
Because that's a tropey thing. It's minor. But so the original vampire that started the whole thing, he's just out running around in the daylight.
Mm-hmm. That's frankly
messing with his food.
That's frankly the most horror forward. Well, there's a couple other horror tropes in the film, but that's the most horror forward scene. Is they have the musical stings, him zipping by in a mirror in the background, and the character
casting a reflection.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So that's another trope they just threw
It feels like they are treating vampires more like a biological virus than
like a
mystical thing,
like a zombie.
Because the mirror thing feels more mystical. I'm sure they could turn to mist.
Or bats.
Maybe
And it was even mentioned, are they going to turn into bats?
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Well, and they didn't because they could be blocked by the right size barricade.
Yeah.
Or not.
Remember,
so the problem, as far as this is a wonderfully acted film, the visuals, while minimal, they weren't challenging. They were very forward. You knew what you were seeing. There wasn't anything special. There was, CGI. There was some CGI. But
there's a pretty good cinematography.
The framing was really good in some of the scenes. There was a direct call out to somebody crawling through.
It's kind of a Die Hard
vibe. She's like, I'm crawling through.
It framed her assets correctly, and I'm saying assets with the wink. Dan,
wink, nudge, nudge.
Post-production, put a wink in there.
Yes. One of my favorite scenes is when they're just watching the carnage outside the bar and just describing it, and you see explosion in the background, but not the actual explosion.
So you see a flash,
and then
spray of blood,
a flying head. It just that was a
slow-mo
great scene.
head,
like
slow-mo head. And they're like, "Is that slow-mo?"
Wow! Now they're like throwing a motorcycle at this guy, and it's like that was a really good.
So there was a very clever way to hide the use of their budget in this film.
Yes.
So instead of showing the scenes of a guy being decapitated and a truck being flipped over, instead they showed the reaction of people watching these things and then talking about it.
Which frankly give us more screen time of the drag queens, which is why we're watching this movie.
Yeah.
Right.
You really want to get to know the characters. I think that's one of the rules of an effective film, an effective story,
especially for horror. You want to know who you're going to be sad about when they're bitten or killed or whatever.
Yeah, and not. We're going to spoil it.
I mean, you're going to spoil
it. Vampires can be good and or bad. We already talked about that.
We talked about that. Yeah.
Does that apply to drag queens as well? Can they be good and or
bad? Yes. Are there heels?
Depending on the day of the week.
Oh, geez. Really? I have not watched enough RuPaul to know what the...
Oh, yeah. No, the shade is real.
Shade is real.
Get a flashlight. The shade is out.
Yes, it is. And so costuming, as far as, so we mentioned there's some suspense of disbelief. Oh, it's a vampire campy film. I mean, come on. So they're shown their dressing room, which is pretty shady and not real good.
It's essentially a storage room.
A storage
They
room.
didn't clear out.
And then the next time you see it,
The wallpaper is different.
Yeah, it's like the drag queens came in and
because they do that.
Yeah, their green room, their makeup room. Wow.
Boudoir.
Yeah.
Is that something that you would agree with? Did
yeah.
that seem very,
Yes.
like, completely not believable at all?
No, it was fabulous.
Do drag queens tend to come into a space and transform wherever they're
Well,
staying in?
they're provided pretty bougie accommodations
Nice.
on Drag Race.
As they should be.
At most bars, I can't imagine the changing rooms look quite like that.
Yeah, they probably look like broom closets.
Or a kitchen.
Yeah.
I go to Barlow and there's
Oh,
no
so-
space for that.
So another thing about this film that we mentioned quite often was it was a huge bar. Every space
Humongous. It was
a big bar.
so big. The kitchen was like an industrial kitchen.
It was like a kitchen from Jurassic Park.
It did look huge.
There's a bowling alley downstairs.
There was a bowling alley in the basement. It didn't say how many lanes, but there's a bowling alley in the basement.
Well, one of our queens smashed a vampire with a bowling ball. It was great.
That did happen. So
what a great movie.
if you want to actually see it, you should watch this wonderful streaming film.
Support Tubi.
Yeah, support Tubi. I want to say you can probably sign up and get it for free.
Oh,
It's-
I have it for free. Yeah,
It's-
absolutely.
Yeah,
It's out
Tubi
there.
is a free streaming service.
Yeah, I mean, there might be commercials during it, but what I have did not have commercials. But I want to say the simple fact that this kind of independent provider of content is going out there and making something interesting, supportive, quality. It's, out here during I think it came out a few months ago So this is not necessarily something that one would think, all right, so who funded this? This is like a non-Hollywood, this is independent B film.
It's an independent film. I would not call it a B film.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, clearly there was a lot of work done on the script. It didn't look like second-rate professionals were involved.
Yeah.
I mean, they definitely had care to making this film. They weren't just cutting corners to cut cost. I mean, even though we talked about that one scene where they were describing the explosions and the cars flipping over.
That feels more like a reference to other B films.
Yeah.
That was a little meta because they were referencing
Yeah,
to tell this story, we would have to have a huge budget.
Yeah.
The production values were really good.
Oh, yeah.
For what they had, yes.
And the script was extremely clever. And as far as B movies go, I mean, they shoot a 1.5 hour movie in 14 days for a B movie. This clearly took
less than
longer.
that. You think?
Oh yeah. Well, okay. For example, we were talking about it while we were watching it. The 360 around the guy's head in the fight sequence. You've got to lay track for that and rehearse it so that the focus puller gets the focus right.
Yeah, as you're
And
turning.
that's like that's a 4-hour shot to just set that up. That's half your day.
Okay.
I keep forgetting how long this stuff takes.
Yeah, no, it takes forever. And
They're not on their iPhone doing this shit.
yeah, and I mean other B movie things. Often there's a lot of gratuitous violence and gratuitous nudity to get the teenage boys involved.
There is a lot of top pulling and women running around with their boobs out. Yeah.
Yeah, and,
This one has
and
none of
that.
that.
Didn't happen.
Yep.
And
There's a
I
reference
wouldn't.
to boobs, but
Oh, there's one boob out.
Taken out.
no, listener, we're not gonna extrapolate. Go watch the movie.
Go watch it because it's
Yeah.
funny. It's
So
really funny.
I would say this is an indie film, not a B movie.
Yeah.
And it's well worth watching. It's very entertaining.
Yeah.
Let me give credit to the production companies are Blue Ice Pictures and Pressure Cooker Studios, and the writer and director is
Dun, dun,
Jim
dun.
Gerard. Gerard? Make sure, in case it's a
Gerard.
drag queen, I'm getting the name wrong.
Gerard, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So
definitely has a lot of really interesting aspects from filmmaking. The people that are making this, the cinematographer, the director, the people that did the scripting and the writing
And
knew what they were doing.
hair and makeup is fantastic.
Hair and makeup was
not just the drag,
phenomenal.
but
Everyone.
all the characters.
All the bikers felt like legitimate bikers.
Correct.
And
with
the
a little wink at like, these guys are silly.
the conceptual look of at least one of the drag queens was
Quite innate.
phenomenal. I loved it.
You talking
One of the best
about
looks I've
Bella
seen.
Du Bois?
The young one.
Yeah, I think that's Bella Du Bois. Yeah.
Yeah, with the
Played by-
giant kind of
Played by
Crystal
Crystal
Method.
Method.
Crystal with the giant like kind of
That's her
lips.
signature.
The huge
signature
lips.
lips, the giant lips.
What,
But
what is
it
the
was cool.
purpose?
It was
what
really
is the
cool.
purpose of having like the huge lips for makeup? Is there like a goal
That's
for it?
just
or
her signature.
That's her look.
Nice.
Makeup style. So some
Nice.
queens have very exaggerated.
There were some exaggerated, like there were some like eyelashes
like
that were like for days.
Mattel.
Trixie Mattel.
Trixie
So
Mattel.
some people will say that they're painting for the back of the room, and some people will be painting for the post office down the street. So yeah, they'll over exaggerate to make their features really pop. I thought her signature makeup was a little toned down in this to fit the aesthetic of what she was wearing.
That's so funny because Brian and I were both like, man, that's a lot of makeup.
Well, when she went like full on Jada Pinkett Smith,
Weird head.
with crazy whip like ponytail, it was
yeah.
it was hot. It was great makeup and great outfit, great hair.
Crawling
So good.
through
It was
them air
great.
vents.
It was really good. She got 3 costumes this movie.
Yeah.
A lot of costume change. Yeah.
That was awesome. Everyone else kind of kept the same, but she kind of worked it and got additional stuff. That was really cool.
So one of the interesting things that happened about 3/4 of the way through, well, maybe half to 3/4, is there was someone who we were like, oh, that must be a producer's daughter or somebody. We're like,
a biker who was not in the movie until this one particular show.
correct.
An extra just kind of showed up to be killed.
Maybe Jim Gerard's kid.
I don't know, who knows, but it's just like they showed up, they fought, and they were already a vampire, so you assume they got bit. And then they magically, like, they were in the room the whole time. And you're like, what the heck?
They show up on camera to get bit, and then we're a vampire later.
Yeah. And then it's like they're fighting and stuff.
No speaking
No
lines.
speaking
I
lines.
know that's the
So
thing
no
with the
SAG
SAG,
card
yeah,
on that
yeah.
one. Yeah. No speaking, you're good.
This movie's awesome. Like, we're kind of pointing out the silly parts of it, but this is a really fun movie. Definitely
has a
watch
good-
this with your
very
friends.
entertaining.
It has a good story. It has a good ending. It's not disappointing.
The acting's pretty good. The writing's phenomenal.
Yeah. I would say with what they had, they did really well with.
Oh, yeah.
There's, again, I want to go back to some of the shots, the framing, the obvious use. You didn't have any issues with hearing any of the actors when they were speaking.
No.
There wasn't any drop out of the audio. People in the back you could hear, people in the front you could hear, so they were really well mic'd. The lighting was really well. The performance, well, it was like, well, they really didn't have all those. You saw her at the beginning of before the performance
referenced
putting
the-
lights up, and it's like, yeah,
They reference
we
the
can
one
figure it out.
spotlight, and then it's a pretty good show. Guys working a mix table really well.
Yeah. So yeah, you had the one guy running the audio and the lighting together, and it
Old
was like,
Mixie.
yeah,
Old Mixie.
and he ended up being a good vampire. So I'm going to just spoil that one. It's all right.
Daniel.
Damn.
There's some really
I like
good.
that Fat Boy has a photo for his IMDb, but not any of the other bikers.
Yeah, the fat boy. The
Travis does too. And
the-
Sheila, Brian's favorite.
Yeah. There's some interesting character not development where you're just a side character. It's like, oh, you're a red shirt in Star Trek. You're just gonna die.
But they have a great time doing
Yeah, but
it. It's
Some of the side characters really are well developed. I mean,
Fat Boy is vegan.
yeah,
They reference that a bunch.
you kind of think they're an archetype, and then they add a little more information, and they're not really that archetype.
Shout out to
completely.
Jim Gerard for
Yeah.
writing a good script.
Yeah.
And speaking of not typical, I think we're ready to maybe transition over to speaking a little bit about these.
Yeah, the only beers in this movie were Tall Boys of Budweiser, which made my heart hurt.
We're in a bar. They did shots, and it looked like a
Yeah.
Jim Beam bottle, or not Jim Beam, but like a
Like a
Jack Daniels.
a JD bottle,
like a
yeah.
knockoff Jack Daniels. Because they spent all the money on WAP and
Yeah.
shoot the other song.
Doja Cat.
Doja Cat.
Boss Bitch.
Yes.
Yeah. And, props to them for. There was a lot of neon and a lot of signs. There were a few signs you could tell what it was, and it's just like, okay, it's
We
an
all
old
know it's
bar.
83 something and 24 hours.
Yes.
I saw
There's
that
this
a lot.
big neon sign. We're like, what the heck is that about? I don't know. Whatever.
It's a Roadhouse.
It is.
And they drink beer to Roadhouse. And we're going to talk about beers now.
Yes, we are. So this
So,
is the
dear listener, if you know what the number 83 refers to, please put it in the comments below.
Yeah, big neon sign. We're like, what is that? Anyway.
Go to Dan's address, which I'll list off now.
So I want to give, as we're starting this point at the top.
We're going to talk about beer now.
We are going to talk about beer now.
It's
I
true.
can't even talk. It's so bad.
That's why you have your two other co-hosts here to help out.
And the special guest who's just laughing at me because I'm just fumbling everywhere. He's laughing.
It's great.
It's all good.
It is great.
So Gigantic Brewing has a line of beers called Weird Portland United. And Weird Portland United supports a sort of Keep Portland Weird, those figures and characters within the Portland culture.
Portland,
scene.
Oregon.
Portland,
If
Oregon.
we didn't say it, because I know there's a Portland, Maine people confused because they're insane.
The Portland scene has keeping it weird. Keep Portland weird is the mantra that a lot of people use. It's out there. It's on the side of a building. People are like, all right, cool. There's also characters and figures within the Portland scene who have been around a long time or give a lot back to the community. Things such as the Unipiper or people that are just known. And Gigantic Brewing is one of these small independent brewing companies that does a lot of outreach and support of those communities, including the LGBT community. And last year, before she passed away, there is a drag queen by the name of Darcelle. And Darcelle is actually in the Guinness Book of World Records as the longest running drag performer.
I keep forgetting she's in the
Darcelle
Guinness
15
books.
is
That's awesome.
Yeah, Darcelle 15 is the name of the bar. She's Portland's original drag queen because like that bar's been around like for a really, really, really long time. And so Gigantic made the fourth iteration of this beer is called the Darcelle Blond IPA. Weirdtastic series is the name of the series that they do. And we're going to talk about one of the other beers of that series. When she was introduced on stage, it was the bold, the blonde, and the beautiful. So Gigantic took that and talked with other people within the community, within the drag community, and said, all right, hey, so we're going to have something bold and beautiful. So they use cashmere and luminosa hops, which are very aromatic, and it tasted almost like a juicy IPA, but it wasn't quite. It had some sharpness to it. Now, this beer was made more than a year ago in small batch, and so I do need to give a shout out to the company that I found this with. There's none of it out there in the market anywhere. And
Is it not Gigantic?
Internet searching. No, this beer sold out really fast. So
I mean, good. That's awesome.
So I did some searching in New Deal Distillery and Bottle Shop.
New Deal?
New Deal.
New Deal.
Newdeal. So they're in Southeast Portland. They've been around a really long time. They're one of the original old school distilleries that have been around forever. We have a number of their hard alcohols, but they had a bunch of these available. And
Nice.
I went there this week and I was like, all right, I know what we're watching. So the point was I need to find something. And I knew that Gigantic had this line of beers because they promoted it really heavily before she passed away. And it was all gone when she passed away. And it's just like, well, shit, all right, how do I find this? And I found some.
I'm
which is
devastated.
super
Was this when you
amazing.
texted me Tuesday about going? I'm so sad I couldn't have gone.
It was
This has been such a fun trip.
And the woman who was helping me out there, she was just like, she is so passionate about it. She's like, oh my God, you're going to get some. I was like, no, we're going to talk about this because this is an important icon in Portland who has had and is still running. The establishment still exists. Darcelle's 15, which is in Old Town Chinatown in downtown Portland, does drag performances every night, like 7 days a week. She performed for over 55 years. That's a really long time to be a performer. And the simple fact that they honored her with both artwork on the label and a beer in her honor and just donated all the proceeds. It was just like, or a lot of the proceeds, I don't know about all, but most of the proceeds went to helping out the community of both artists and performers and so on. I have to give mad props to them. So this is a blonde IPA, 5.9%, 100% IB or 100 IBUs. So this is supposed to be super bitter. It really, I was really, really, really hoping this wasn't light struck or oxidized, and it wasn't. It was actually a really kind of gentle. It had some sharpness to it up front, but then it kind of faded a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, for 100 IBUs, it was not as
So
bitter
again,
as I expected.
correct. So again, people, IBUs means international bitter units, which is the leftover residual alpha acidity and not bitter flavor. Remember that.
Now, Dan, Aaron's not here, but there is copy.
Feel free to read the copy.
Let me see if I can do this justice. Feel free to shut me down if I do it wrong.
Channel it.
Only Darcelle could inspire a beer this bold, this blonde, this beautiful. We use cashmere and luminosa hops to be apropos as well as bright and tropical. That's all. And then proceeds from the special edition of Darcelle Blond IPA go to a charity chosen by the family of Darcelle XV.
15.
Thank you. And then the amazing weird Portland United is I'll take a picture and put it on the Instagram. It's a really cool picture.
Yeah, no, and this was artwork. I want to say this was that gigantic. So if you're familiar in the Portland metro area or have had their beers, gigantic labels change every time they do a beer, and every time they redo a beer, the label changes. They have local artists that they bring in and they commission to do artwork, and it's really super amazing. And while this was a really good beer to have, and it tasted wonderful.
James, you tried some, right? How'd you like it?
Speaking as someone that doesn't really drink beer,
yes,
all that
please
often,
give us the tea. Spill the tea.
I actually liked it. I tend to go for beers that are on the lighter side. So is that like pilsners
and Hellas's and things that are lighter? But
delicious Budweiser.
Yes,
I enjoyed this beer. I think of the two that we tried, I think this was the one I would go back to.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Very cool.
I liked it, but I think I'd go for the second one. And we'll get to what Dan was getting to before I cut him off to introduce our guest.
Oh, no, it's all good.
I don't know if it matched the movie as well.
I don't think it did either.
I mean,
it was good. Beer.
It was tasty. I think with either Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, or Tuan Fu, or something a little heavier content.
Mad Max.
Yeah, I could see a Mad Max with this. I could drink this watching Fury Road.
Yeah, I mean she's screaming on the label. I mean, she's yelling and well done up.
It's a great picture. It's so good.
Yeah, there's so again, if you had the opportunity to try this beer when it was available, I would say you were lucky because again, there wasn't a lot of it made, and it was around town. It was on draft as well as in bottles. I don't think they canned it. I just think it was bottles.
I didn't know it was on draft. That's cool.
Yeah. It was better than I expected. I would say it did not go with the film. Yeah. This film is kind of campy and lighthearted, and this is more of a serious beer. I would say. Yeah. It was okay.
More Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Yeah. So mango, candied orange peel, peach. I mean, the fruits from the hops were a
fun combo of flavors.
Were there and strong and almost dank in some ways. Like I said, this spoke
I'd agree with the dank thing. Like it's kind of heavier than expected.
New England IPA, hazy IPA-ish, but not, let us say, decent. You're not going to find it because this is like it's gone.
Are there other ones similar to this that you can think of off the top of your head?
The term blonde IPA, I think, was just coined specifically for this because she did perform with blonde hair and then various colored hair based on the attitude and mood that she was in. But it's a lighter. It was definitely hoppy, bitter up front.
Yeah.
But then dropped quickly, thin body, dried out in the mid. It wasn't disappointing. It wasn't mean. It wasn't in your face. It was just there and had some good flavor profile.
It was a delicious beer. And dear listener, this is your time capsule for this beer that you'll never, ever get to taste.
You'll never, ever get to try this.
But we
unless
did.
You can find it.
Take that, Aaron.
There you go. So moving on. So Gigantic again. The weird Portland United.
Real quick, is this the first time we've done the same brewery for both beers?
Yes.
Whoa.
So this is the first for the podcast, but this is also I knew these beers existed. I knew that they were doing these. Poison Waters, who's a drag queen here in Portland, who does a lot of charity work, a lot of emceeing of events, very well known. Portland Pride is this weekend. I know you're probably going to hear this a month after the fact, but very, very visible, out there in the community, doing a lot of outreach. And there is a lot of text on this can, but the text is in cursive and really small. You got this?
I got my glasses on.
All right. So this is Poison Water Beermosa from Gigantic.
Poison Waters Beermosa with an exclamation point.
Yes.
Inspired by Poison Waters and her humor, joy, and positive light. Should be an Oxford comma there. This Beermosa is loaded with tangerine and pineapple puree, delivering an easy drinking and juicy experience. Proceeds from the
Weirdtastic series.
Weirdtastic series of beers are donated to Weird Portland United, a nonprofit that supports the artistic risk takers that make our city weirdly wonderful.
Yes.
Dan, did the producer work to make it sound awesome?
Yes.
Leave in your contribution, because that's very helpful. Thank you.
So this is 5.7%. So this is classified as a shandy or radler. So this is a base beer.
That makes way more sense.
It's a base beer that's going to be super light and a lager of some sort, and then they just add fruit juice to it, and that's what they did. So after it's fermented, they're adding in the tangerine and pineapple puree, and that's what made it taste just like juice. I mean, there was
It was delicious.
Very, very little beer flavor. So 5.7%. I don't have an IBU on it because they didn't have it out there. But this is a really, really good example of what a fruit Gosas tend to be a little bit more sharper, but they're also lagered. This is just a simple fruit beer.
This you could pair with a clear liquor, I think, pretty well. James and Brian, what'd you guys think of it?
I thought it matched the movie well.
I'd agree with that. A lot more colorful and
fruity punch.
Yeah.
I thought it went better with the film. I also enjoyed it more.
Yeah.
Because I don't like the really heavy hoppy beers. That's just personal taste.
And this is just light and fruity.
And we're also sitting here in 85 to 90 degree weather.
I was gonna say, wait till December, then you'll want a heavy beer.
And it's a really nice summer beer.
Oh yeah,
it is. So the term shandy or radler.
Yeah, educate us, beer monger.
We've had those for the podcast before. We've had some European versions.
Ooh, yeah.
This being an American version. So you take something light, a light beer or a Helles or a Pilsner, something that is super light as a lager, usually below 5% alcohol. This is a traditional radler. You're literally pouring lemonade and then a light beer.
Really?
And I
didn't realize it was that basic.
Mix. Yeah, it's super basic.
I can make a radler at home.
So you can make radlers anywhere you want. I mean, it's just a matter
of
making
it at the bus station.
A fruit juice. So adding different purees, that's why they're like, this is a mimosa. So
Beermosa.
A Beermosa. All right. So mimosas
are a really fun word to
champagne,
say.
Champagne and usually orange juice, but they don't have to be orange juice. You got other juices that can play around with champagne. This being a bubbly substance, you're adding a juice to after the fact just to give it flavor. And that's what mimosas are. You're just adding a flavor to mask the harshness of the bubbly. And bubbly doesn't have to be harsh, but usually the Prosecco and cheap stuff that they serve at bars, be it gay bars or other bars that you can get mimosas at.
You can say it, straight bars. We have them.
Bars, they're out there.
Straight people represent.
I don't know how many of them have mimosas, though.
No, not many.
To get back to the filmmaking, this film did not have a lot of heavy emotional content. There was one moment that was the end of the second act where one of the drag queens had been killed, and they were
but we'll never tell.
Supposedly,
where they were definitely trying to bring down the mood to the end of Act 2, and of the whole film, that worked the least well for me.
Yeah.
So
it felt staged.
It felt really staged. So this particular beer was lighter emotionally, just like the rest of the film.
So you're saying we should have saved some of the first beer for that moment, slammed it, and then go back to the second beer.
Yeah, maybe it might have helped because that moment really felt contrived.
It did
compared to the rest of the film.
With that in mind,
it felt a little forced.
Is faking a death ever a thing in drag performances?
Well, for the uneducated, they will call them death drops, but it's really a shablam.
Educate this uneducated fool right here that's speaking right now. What is a death drop?
A death drop is where you basically fall to the ground on your back and you basically bend one of your legs at the knee.
I have seen that on YouTube. Yeah.
And the uneducated will call them death drops, but that's not.
It's a shablam.
It's a shablam.
Shablam is way more fun to say.
Learn something new every day.
So is that something they practice to make sure they don't hurt themselves?
Oh yeah.
You have to learn how to fall.
You
have to learn how to fall.
But the funniest thing, you need to find the videos that are just compilations of people falling, and then it instantly switches to ballroom scenes where they do the same move but then continue to dance. Those are the best videos ever.
That sounds amazing. Put that in the link for the show notes, Dan.
We'll have to do that. Yes, please watch these videos. I want to thank everybody for hanging out. And
oh, you're welcome, buddy.
And coming along on this wonderful Pride weekend journey to celebrate both diversity, queerness, this wonderful drag movie, which even for the straight boys in the crowd, it's a good film. This film has a lot of
fun
camp.
Movie. I told 3 different friend groups in my Discords, we need to watch this as a group. This is a really fun watch.
It does provide a great message of inclusion of all
absolutely.
people. Those queens don't hate. They're like, don't bring yourself down. That's their golden rule. Don't talk yourself down because you're your worst enemy. And you just have to move forward and celebrate yourself and celebrate everybody else.
You gotta stick together or these vampires are gonna eat us.
What was their saying? Don't shit on yourself?
Yeah. Don't should on yourself. Not shit, should on yourself. I should have done. I should have that. I should have that. Yeah.
What a great message.
Yes. And we did try to hydrate a little bit during the course of this film.
Again, apologies if I get this wrong. If you don't hydrate, you're gonna dehydrate.
Oh, girl.
I did a neck thing and it didn't work very well.
Yeah, this is an audio podcast, not a video podcast.
What?
You're okay.
Why do you have all these cameras?
That's for later.
Dang it.
Oh,
not again.
There we go. So, as always, the opinions expressed during taking this recording are those of the host. And we want to really thank you all for hanging out and listening and enjoying this along with us.
We should thank our special guest.
You should definitely thank my brother James for coming to hang out with us.
Thank you for having me. This was a wonderful experience.
Yeah. I mean, we did this great, wonderful film and really think everyone should go watch it and enjoy it with friends. I mean, it's worthwhile. It's not offensive in any way. I mean, there's a little blood. I mean, you had mentioned that you might recommend it to friends.
Cartoony blood.
It's cartoony stuff. And the gunshots don't do
anything. And it's better watched with friends.
It is.
This would suck by yourself alone in the dark room.
Yeah. We've heard that from someone.
As most movies are.
Yes. Don't watch it alone in the dark. That's not a good scene.
Not it. It's great by yourself in a dark room.
Well, yeah.
All right. So
this is your vampire and now sorta drag expert Blake. Signing off.
Oh, bye-bye.
Snap, snap, snap.
This is your guest host, James, saying goodbye.
And thank you, dear listener, for listening once again. This is Brian signing off.
Jesus, when did Brian get here?
I know, right? All right. Farewell, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode.